Hey guys, thank you for joining us again for another exciting episode of YOML. This is the Year of Magical Learning podcast, and today's reflection is number 363. I guess this is three more away from the 365, the marker that we, you know, kind of earmarked, and it's a
The
familiar author, Bill Bryson, and probably one
last
of the last Bill
it
Bryson
is
for the 365.
it is the last Bill Bryson. If this was a marathon, by the way, we'd be at mile marker 26, crossing mile marker 26 right now to 26.2. So we can literally see the finish line from probably where we're standing right now, which we can. We're only three books
No, I
away.
mean,
Yeah, I'm saying like, but the
which is
finish line of
earmarked for
365.
365. I say, hey, that's something we want to
It
maybe
is. Yeah.
celebrate for a little bit and then continue on.
Yeah, you celebrate for 5 minutes, and then we say let's do another one tomorrow because we'll have plenty more to go. But either way, we're getting closer to the original finish line of what this originally was intended to be. Yes, we kept going, but we ran an ultra marathon. But we're going back through in time right now at this point in time through the original marathon, and it's fun to relive it. So if we're playing along with the game, we're crossing mile marker 26 and at a 26.2, and we're gaining steam and we're getting that final finishing kick, which is exciting and fun. So, as you mentioned, the last book in this, or the third to last book in this journey is book number 363. It is In a Sunburned Country by Bill Bryson, one of our favorite authors in this whole journey. And I think this was the last Bill Bryson book, or maybe there's one or two other ones out there that I hadn't like of his like famous books that I hadn't read yet on this
Mhm.
journey. This was like the last one, and I was like, well, okay. This has been on my anti-library wish list for 3 years. I was like, I might as well pull it off, and it's always you could never go wrong with a good Bill Bryson journey, right? And this was no exception. This book is about Bill taking a trip to Australia and documenting his journey and all the things that he learned about the country, the people, and the places. And it's a pretty incredible place, to be honest with you. I don't know why, like I'd never really thought much about. I wrote in this reflection, when I think about Australia, the first things that come in mind. Well, I wouldn't even look at it because I'll just play along with my own game right now. First things that come around when I would think about Australia before I read this book: Sydney Opera House,
Mhm.
Outback Steakhouse,
Mhm.
the Bloomin' Onion, Alice Springs Chicken, which I found out Alice Springs is actually like a real place, in the middle of the Outback, right? So I get now where Alice Springs Chicken comes from at Outback
Mhm.
Steakhouse. I think of Crocodile Dundee,
Yep,
um,
yep.
Steve
That's for me.
Irwin.
Uh-huh.
Steve Irwin, the guy that did Steve Irwin was the crikey, the guy that would get bit by shit all the time. He died from like a stingray, you
Yep,
know.
yep.
What else do I think of? The Australian Open for me, obviously. That's
Mhm.
for tennis, right? And I always do think of their athletes, like their summer games, like the Olympians, like their pool game is strong. Like they're always really good swimmers. They're always really good tennis players, So they're athletic people. And then the Great Barrier Reef, like that's about all that I know of when I think of Australia. After learning about this, after reading this book and learning more about the country, it's almost like comical. Like it'd be like talking about the United States and going, "Oh yeah, the Empire State Building and the Golden Gate Bridge and Texas." You're like, yeah, but there's a lot more to America than just that, right? So anyway, it was a fun journey with Bill as always, and he makes learning always a blast, and I learned a lot about the country. The thing that actually I found the most interesting personally about Australia that I learned in this book was, do you know how Australia started as a
The
modern
prison.
history? Huh?
As a prison from UK.
That's exactly right. It was a penal colony, right? They sent their prisoners over from the UK, and I think a lot of people know that.
No.
Exactly. but but like this is what kind of blew me away. I thought, well, actually, let me ask you this question. Would you assume that Australians are proud or not proud of that?
Of being
Founded as a penal colony and their origin of their roots of their
I
country.
think they would be proud of it.
They are not proud of it. And I heard that and I was like, it's like a source of it's like a really sore spot for Australians. And I heard that and I was like, why? I was like, why would they not be proud of that? And then as Bill started to talk more about why they weren't proud of it, I was like, that does make a lot of sense actually. So I hadn't really thought about it. This is why the origin story, this is where it got me thinking, right? If you actually thought about what happened with these people that got sent over from the UK, they were shipped away from their homeland to a place around the world that nobody even knew where they were going to arrive or not. They just got shipped on a boat and they were like, hopefully you end up somewhere. Then, if you were lucky enough to make it to this island as a outcast, never seen your family or friends ever again, you walk onto an island where literally it is one of the most harsh environments on the planet, and there's no civilization there or any established anything, and they're tasked with trying to figure out how to survive this entire journey and this entire adventure. They're literally left on an island to never see anybody ever again and thrown out onto the end of the wilderness to survive. It's like if you were like Bear Grylls or something like that. If you were an unlikable Bear Grylls and they just chucked you out into the forest, dropped you out in a helicopter in the middle of like Siberia, and we're like, hey, figure it out, bro. That's pretty rough, man. That's not cool. A lot of them died. A lot of them didn't survive the journey. A lot of them didn't survive trying to establish themselves in a very unforgiving country and landscape. And yes, clearly a few of them did, and enough to survive and thrive and grow a civilized community that it is today. But that's not something that they were proud of their ancestry.
In my view, I think they should be proud of it, because the thing is, yes, they have been giving this sentence, but whether or not they're going to be brought in prisons in England or getting shipped to Australia, but the proud moment is the ability to overcome all the things that you talked about.
So you're jumping the gun of my origin stories. This is what it got me thinking about is origin stories and how you see it, but maybe not somebody that survived it sees it.
I think it's just perspectives.
It is. There's a very important.
I mean, you think about my perspective, right? Like for me to go from Vietnam to the United States and say, "Oh, I hate that." No, I thought I was the millionaire. I was a lucky lottery winner.
I would assume you would have hated it.
Would assume I hated my families over there, and I feel blessed to be here. So
again, it is very much so about perspectives, right? And that's what this is about, is the origin stories. That is the reflection of this. A couple months before I finished this reflection, I had visited, I think it was 2017. I've been to Hawaii probably 5 times in my life. Up until 2017, of the trips that I had gone to, I think there was like 3 other trips before that, I had never gone to Pearl Harbor. So during that particular trip, I wanted to make it a point to stay on Oahu, go to Pearl Harbor, and go experience that experience, right? And the interesting thing that I saw when I visited Pearl Harbor was I didn't really care. It was kind of just a tourist attraction, and on a beautiful paradise day, right? I don't mean that to be offensive to anybody of what happened at Pearl Harbor. I understand the historical significance of the event, but the personal significance to me was more like, oh, this is just a tourist, attraction. It's interesting to see it and move on, right? Like, and that was about my thoughts that I had on Pearl Harbor. Now, juxtapose that with my recent visit for the first time to the World Trade Center in 2022. I had never been to the World Trade Center site in my life, right? And that site, walking through the 9/11 Museum and the former World Trade Center site location and going underground. Have you ever been there to the World Trade Center Museum?
No, I have not.
That experience, I could barely keep from bawling my eyes out. I wanted to almost vomit, honestly, when I was there. And I got really angry, actually, because there was a lot of foreigners that were walking around taking it in as a tourist site. And I was like, this isn't a fucking tourist site. A lot of people fucking died here, and like a lot of lives were changed here, and a lot of trauma happened on this spot, right? So I'm saying,
who allowed the tourists to be there?
Anybody. I mean, anybody's allowed to.
No, but no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you say this. It's not for tourists. The people won't come. You made it that
true. Way. I mean, I don't think that you could ask somebody. I don't know how you would ascertain somebody's tourism, desire to want to tour. I mean, I was a tourist. I don't live in New York. I mean, I was a tourist in New York.
I go to Area 51 and be a tour. Can you stop me from being in Area 51? No, you cannot. Why would you be able to walk Area 51? You know what Area 51 is?
Yeah, that's where the New Mexico, right? Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So what I'm getting at is, what was the big difference between my experience at Pearl Harbor and my experience at 9/11, or at the World Trade Center site?
I guess in Pearl Harbor, you didn't really get emotional, but for New York, because it was far, I guess it didn't align with your emotions.
I didn't live through it. I didn't experience it. I viscerally remember everything about 9/11. I viscerally remember where I was, what I was doing, what my friends and I were talking about, how watching the news all night long as crying, like, and thinking what the fuck is going on, and like, being angry and being sad and my friends going off to war. And, I mean, I remember I saw this stuff. I felt these feelings. I lived it, right? Like that was the difference. I didn't feel, you know, the attacks on Pearl Harbor and World War II and ramifications of that. None of that touched my life in any way, shape, or form. And I was a tourist, right? Like versus 9/11,
But
that
it
was that,
did. But it
but it
did.
did. But this is
It
what
just it's just your perspective is what you hold on to as your anchor, right? You're
yeah,
anchoring something that you say, well, I have this feeling and I can't let it go. It's not to say that Pearl Harbor did not have an impact on you. Actually, Pearl Harbor has a more of an impact on you, on your life, than the other thing that you feel so strongly about.
I agree. You're going exactly where I was going with this too, is like, here's the thing that I think that we forget about all events that happen. There's always an origin that you don't understand. So even when you walk into the most beautiful garden, that beautiful garden maybe 500 years ago was torched by a wildfire or whatever, and it was charred. Everything that you see in this world at one point in time was probably built on pain, suffering, and trauma, and rebuilt and then rebuilt again and then rebuilt and built again. Like the difference is, it's perspective. Exactly what you just said, right? Like people might see this journey that you and I are on. We're on book 363, reflection 363. We're having fun. We're joking around. We're laughing. We've been experiencing a great time, yada, yada, yada. But this is built on fucking an atomic bomb in my life, right? That like I can't forget it and I will never forget it. But like I I don't want people to forget the origin stories of where these things come from. I'm not saying that we have to live in that moment for every moment of our life, but at the same time, like always respect, when you walk into a beautiful garden, like, because I think this journey has been pretty beautiful that you and I've put together with this whole entire experience and what we've gone through. And somebody just taking it in, they have every right to take it in however they want to take it in. I'm saying that like the learning should be always remember that when you go somewhere that's that you appreciate, like there's a lot of a story to it than and like places like Australia, when you see beautiful cities like Sydney and Melbourne and whatever, like at one point in time these were dudes that were exiles that were fighting for their life, coming over on a slave ship basically. I mean, like it there's a lot of pain and suffering and trauma that went into that too. And before that, there was probably a lot of pain and suffering that even went to the people that lived there before. And before that, and before that, and before that, like we could go on and on and on. I guess have just reverence in general is my lesson, of where there was always something that came before you, and it was always usually built on trauma and pain and suffering. But at the same time, it shouldn't take away from enjoying the beauty of it. But always just remember that there is origin stories behind these things, and they need to be respected and understood and taken into account, I guess. But yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, I think it behooves you to take that in as an origin story and decide whether or not that aligns with you and how you use it to better yourself. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it matters at all. If it doesn't align with your core value, it doesn't do anything for you,
I
right?
agree. I
Because
mean,
you can say,
I'm
hey,
not forcing somebody to care. I mean,
right, you said
you
it
can't.
yourself. They can take in however they want to take it. You can't control that. But from a perspective, this is my life. If you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. And if you don't like it, I don't care.
Right.
My life should not change because of someone else's. This is the thing I kind of want to get across. It's perspective. You are responsible for 90% of all your misery. Your misery comes from your ability or inability to let go of something, right? Because to me, is one of the things that you, like I said before, is if you can do something, that doesn't mean you should. Focus on the thing that makes you better. Yeah, you can control the atomic bomb that hits you, but at the same time, with the atomic bomb came out the ability for you to see a different level, a different perspective, and that thanks to your daughter. And I can't say that it's better this way or that way. I can't say that at all. But at the same time, it's your perspective. How did you take it?
Right.
If you take it in a way that it aligns with you and behooves you, then that's great. But don't follow somebody just because they say something is great or they say something is bad. Be your own judge. Judge for yourself versus taking in a person's perspective. Have your own perspectives. Whether you say, well, from the Australian perspective, this is awful. I hated it. Well, the thing is, from my perspective and the way
It's
I
pretty
see it,
cool. Yeah,
And
it's
from
cool.
the way I see it, and the character that I guess I align with is, I think it's a great thing that they have overcome so many adversity to have this beautiful city in Australia from the barren land that it started out with, right? And to me, is should I hate America for destroying my country, right? And thrust
Good
me
point.
over to a place where I don't belong to neither my country nor this. Because even though I'm Vietnamese American, I'm not American. I'm still a Vietnamese American,
Right.
right? But at the same time, if I can't let go of that fact, how could I enjoy my life? Because I think there's
You
certain
can't.
things
Yeah.
that, yes, they did take away from my life, but they also give me something beautiful. And I can't say that they did it on purpose. They did it because they want to preserve the way of life. It's democracy. Because to me, if I think through the logic of the American president never trying to preserve democracy, then communism will run rampant. There's always the pros and cons. There's always the sun and the moon. There's always a yin and yang. The way the world is all today is because it's balanced. Because half the world are kind of communism and half the world are democracy. So they kind of balance each other out. But if one dominates the other, you're gonna have a very, very different world, and you may not like it.
Right.
But the thing is, you are just part of that cycle, and you can't hate the cycle. You can't hate your life because you were born, right? You think about people say, "I hate my life because I was born. I don't want to be born." But to other people, say, I love my life because I got to be born.
There's people that I've heard this from many of current generation thoughts in modern day time, in modernity, I guess, if you will, of I don't want to have children because I don't want to bring them into this world, and because they don't like this world kind of thing. Like, and to
But
what
at
you
the
just
same
said, I
time,
mean,
you say, hey,
it's not your children.
I deny you the lottery,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want you to have the lottery because money is bad. I'm not gonna give you money because money is bad, right? You
Right.
think what, but let's say you have $1 billion. I say I'm Bill Gates or I'm whoever it is, and I'm gonna not gonna give you the money because our money is bad, right?
Right.
That's your perspective. It's not your kid's perspective, right?
Right.
Perspective is different.
It's not, you can't project on anybody. Like, I mean, you're spot on. Like, somebody might see this journey and go, I think this is really, people have told me this many a times actually on this whole thing. Like, it's kind of inspirational to see what you and Amelia have done. And I don't want to hear that, to be honest with you, because it's not inspirational. Like, I'm not inspired by it. If anything, I'm so very much so traumatized by what my family has gone through and what Amelia went through and what my life is today. I think about it 50 times a day. I don't know how many times a day, whenever I want to have more children with my wife, right? And I see pictures from Amelia and Luca's experience in the NICU, and I go, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to be strong. I don't want to put my children through that again.
Perspective, right?
It
It's
is.
your
Yeah.
choice. It's what you align yourself with. And that's what I'm saying is that's the only thing you can do.
Right, right. I know this is, I think your point is spot on, right? There's no shame in somebody walking into Pearl Harbor and not feeling like they need to collapse and, be flooded with emotions that, there's something wrong with them if they don't have that happen to them. Or vice versa with me walking in and I mean, true, I'm not gonna lie. I told Felicia, I got mad at the foreigners that I heard just like carefree bouncing around the facility. And I'm like, fuck you people. Don't fucking come in here and do this shit. Like,
Mhm.
like, I mean, who the fuck are you to like, you're not even, you don't live here. You don't know what happened. Like, and you're just going to walk in here and like, you know, joke around and play around and in a place where, 3,000 people jumped off of a fucking building or died or whatever. I'm like, fuck you. Like, but like after like, these conversations, I can't project that
You
onto
can't
them.
project
Like,
it,
I
man.
mean,
We're talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? We're talking about the father, right? Got on a train with a bunch of kids, and all they do is roughing around, playing, and laughing on a train.
right.
And the passenger sit next to him and he said, well, aren't you going to tell your kids not to do that and not to be rude and blah, 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 right? And you and I both know the story. They just went to see the mother dying of cancer. This is the
Right.
first time you see him be happy and forgot about the worries of the world.
It's
Right.
so tough to
And
it's
these
so
guys
tough to
may
walk
not,
around.
these
Yeah.
guys may not know. I mean, it's not
Right.
like you did it on purpose. Say, hey, these guys here, this Chris guy here, he lived through this ordeal and let's make him mad.
Right.
They're not out there to get you. And so it is your own inability to let go of things and see different perspective that makes you miserable. It's not
It goes
them.
both. You're right. It goes both ways. I remember writing about the story that I think about all the time of walking down the street like a day or two after Amelia had passed away, and Felicia's, it's a nice day outside in early spring in the Midwest, which everybody wants to be outside. People are passing back and forth on the street because we live right on the street from a park, and families are passing us back and forth as they go to and from the park. And it's a beautiful day. And this is the first time that I was able to get Felicia to leave the house, and to do anything, to even eat or move or whatever. I mean, like we couldn't do anything, right? Like, and like she's bawling her eyes out. I'm walking with my eyes down at the ground, but like the thing is what you're getting at is
And
like
then you're gonna see somebody come over and punch you in the face, right?
yeah,
They're wrong because they didn't understand the story. They didn't understand the perspective.
but it goes both ways though. Like I can't get mad at somebody else for not knowing my
Of
life
course you
either,
can.
right? Like I mean, so it it's important to respect that everybody has an origin story and a journey, and it's okay that somebody doesn't understand that, but it's also okay, you know, it's all it's also not okay to force other people to understand
But
that.
that's what I'm saying is you can and cannot.
Right.
Because what I'm saying is you can't force them, right? And you can't force them to understand the origin story, and you can't force them to understand your story either. But at the same time, that doesn't matter. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is how do you take it?
True. Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Because you can't control what they think. You can't control what they say, right? You can't control what they understand and what they know. Only you can understand what do you know and what can you let go. Because the thing is, you walk down the street with your wife and she's crying her eyes out, right? Everybody's looking at you and saying, this asshole, right? He must have did something bad to his wife. So the thing is, what are you going to do about it? That's the only thing that matters. It's not what they think or they did not think. It's
right.
what you think. How do you
I
take it? Well, the only thing that you know is if you want to be at peace with yourself, you know that it matters. The only thing that matters is I got to pay attention to my wife. Or, you're trying to correct these people. Correct these people who doesn't matter to you, who you don't even like. Like, I need to correct you. I make sure that you're not wrong, right? While here, you left something more important. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what the fuck the origin story is. It is how you take
spot
it.
on. You're spot on, man. It's even more basic than that from what you were just talking about. It's just how can I take the next step? That's what
I'm saying. Is when people misjudge me,
right.
I don't care. I'm not gonna correct them.
I agree.
You're
trying your best.
Sir,
everybody's trying their best.
This is 9/11. This is circuit place that people die for, blah, blah. What does that do?
Doesn't.
One, they're not going to understand it. For you, is you paying attention to something is not important to you. So you're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. Is there something better you can do? If you had only 2 minutes left to live, would you do that?
Your experience is your experience, and that's all you should focus on. Like I totally agree. I think it's important to have perspective both ways. But what I'm hearing you say is perspective is really hard. Like if it's not your own perspective,
the only perspective you can control is yours.
The only perspective you can know and understand is your own. You can't ever understand somebody else's perspective.
Exactly. So you can't use it. You can't use this perspective, right? Because it's only used for your perspective. It's like, okay, if you feel miserable because you are a person and you get outcast to the world, blah blah blah, right? Okay, great. You be miserable. That's fine. You feel miserable. But if I go to my life, I go over here, right? And I say, well, these people is the one that basically created a war between communism and democracy, and it basically happens to fight on my land, and now I get the collateral damage of blah blah blah, right? I hate Russian and I hate American, right? If I can do that, right? Sure. But what would it do for me? From that perspective, I'm looking at my core values. Okay, what do I want? Do I want to make a dent in the universe, or I don't? In my case, I don't. So I don't give a fuck about whether or not I correct people. The American took away something, but they give me something that I like even more. And what happens in the past is not that they had intention on doing it. They're just trying to preserve their way of life.
And that's a perspective that I would never have and will never have. And really, it's just on me to listen to you and say, that's an interesting perspective. Tell me more, right? Just hear what somebody else's perspective is and ask them, what is your perspective? I didn't live this. When I was in Pearl Harbor, I should have said to maybe some old 85-year-old wearing a World War II hat, like, I'd love to learn about what your perspective is on this. I don't understand. Not that I will understand, but I'd like to just hear you talk about it.
You like to understand. The thing is, you are living your life. No one else can live your life, right? You can say,
Right.
well, these people did this. Well, I would take on that misery for whatever reason. That's your own choosing.
Yeah, I agree
No
with you.
one makes you do it, especially in the mind. Even if you imprison someone, you cannot imprison their minds.
Yeah. I it's such an interesting thing to look back on this journey at 363 and talk about this kind of stuff right now because right like it's not it's what's done is done. Like it's not on me to I can't shape somebody
You
else's
can't change the past.
I can't change how somebody perceives this journey either. You know, like I mean they like what we've created and shared with other people, that's on them to now take and move on. You could block off Area 51. You could block off Pearl Harbor, Chernobyl. You could not let people go into Chernobyl and not let them experience however they want to experience it, right? Like, but what does that do? I mean, like that doesn't help anybody. I don't know. This world's about sharing experiences and letting people take whatever they want to take away from it. And it's our duty to share, and it's other people's duties to consume
No,
it however they
it's
want to consume it.
no, it's your duty and it's my duty to live your life and to live my life
Right.
respectively. I
True.
live my life,
Yeah.
however that fits you.
I,
Right? Because there's a lot of cause and effect. There's a lot of the civil rule,
right.
right? Because you live the way you want to live. It's that you want to do this way, but if you encroach me, let's say, oh, I feel happy when I punch True in the face. Well, at the same time, True will punch you back. So you optimize what you do to have this enjoyable life.
Yeah.
That's your duty. Nothing else. Everything
I
else
argue
is
with that.
it's just made up. I don't have to do it to anything. I don't have to do it to put a dead universe.
I agree, man. Like this is an interesting one because this whole conversation is very interesting because it's very much so. I don't know. This is a unique reflection, in my opinion, because there is no right answers to this. It was an observation for myself that I was surprised. I mean, but then
Yes,
again, that's
that's what I
why.
was saying all
Yeah,
along. It is your perspective.
right.
It's your own choosing.
I think it's important though to always remember that there is an
Right. It's
origin.
you. It's important for you, and that's good.
That is true.
You see what I'm
It would
saying?
not have been important to me in
Because my
2017.
story, like you can say, well, yeah, it's interesting, but you don't know anything about how that feels.
Idea. I have
Right? You
no
don't know
idea what
how
it'd
it
be like.
feels
Yeah,
to not have a country,
I
right?
have no idea.
That you've been kicked around like a tumbleweed in that country, right? And then you come here, right? You don't belong either, right? You don't know how that feels, but you can
Yeah,
listen to it and you can say, well, I have some perspective. And if that is your core value and that makes you feel like, okay, I have enjoyed my life and this is important to me, that's
right.
you. And that's great.
If you're beavering on purpose by listening to other people and having empathetic thoughts and feelings, then
Some
by
people
all means do
have
it.
the empathy because some people
Right.
can take in the emotions of people around them. At the
They
same
really truly
time,
can.
but at the same time, it's take a toll. Like your friend. I don't know what his name was, but your
Kevin.
friend's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He's very like he can talk to anyone.
mm,
He can converse with it and be there. But at the same time, he absorbed all the emotions, not of his own,
yeah.
because that's his quality, his character.
You're right. I mean, it's his beavering on purpose. I was actually that first break all the rules book that I finished recently.
Mhm.
The idea of beavering on purpose. They talked a lot about talent, right? So they called talent in this book was reoccurring patterns of recurring thoughts, patterns, or feelings or behaviors. Sorry, recurring recurring thoughts, feelings, or behaviors is or better known as habits, right? Like,
Mhm.
it is your talents, right? What your habits are the things you're talented in, right?
Talents begets your habits.
That's exactly what this is.
But if you
Yeah,
can't talk that well and you can't articulate what you're thinking,
right.
how can you create habits? You can't do that.
You
Your
can't.
talent begets the habits.
That's exactly what they said too. And not only that, to your point of empathy, I can't understand because I'm not an empathetic person. As a matter of fact, I can't even understand the meaning of the word empathy. To be honest with you, I've struggled with this for a really long time. And somebody that was empathetic would be like, "What do you mean you don't understand what empathy is?" Like, that's stupid, Chris. No, I don't understand it. How could you ever fucking know what I feel? Like, I don't understand how that's even possible. But that is a fundamental human function of basic levels of empathy. I understand the concept of empathy. I don't understand how you do that.
You don't have the antenna for it, you're not
I
going to
don't.
receive the channels. That's just the way it is. So if you don't have empathy genes, you cannot understand empathy. Neither
I
do
I
I.
can't.
I don't understand empathy either,
I
right?
can't walk into Pearl Harbor and feel anything. All I felt was the Oahu Mountains and Pearl Harbor Bay staring, and I'm like, man, Hawaii is gorgeous. That's all I felt when I was there. I mean, I couldn't feel anything, you know? And I'm sure if I went to Auschwitz, I probably wouldn't feel anything. I probably would feel this is pretty fucked up because I think it's fucked up, but I don't know how I would feel about it. I don't read the Diary of Anne Frank and feel like I was trapped in an attic fighting for my life with, as a 13-year-old girl. I don't feel that. Like, I don't know. I'm not an empathetic person. So to
Uh,
this,
most people aren't. There's a small
but this is
population who are like telepathic, right? There's some people, populations who are doctors and nurses. You and I both know we can't do that shit, but there are people who can. So
I
there's
agree.
no
That's
way
it.
for me to go and be in a place of no man's land. I
Well,
can't do
no,
that because
no,
I
no
don't have
fucking
that
way.
gene.
I
Right? You
wouldn't. I mean,
cannot do that either.
no fucking way. Like, I mean, I talk about nurses. Like every nurse that Luca or Amelia ever had. Like, I don't even know how to. I
But
said to them,
you imagine they are the one that lives with you, have at least a part of your atomic bomb, right?
it did
Not only you, but I mean other people just like you.
hundreds
They
of people
are living the atomic bomb every single life, part of it, every
all
life,
day, every day.
but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have the ability to do so because that's who they are. Because
I
otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do the job. And so
couldn't. They wouldn't even survive.
you can't continue on another atomic bomb like that. You wouldn't be able to last.
I just told you, I don't want to call it PTSD because that's not the right word. I have serious apprehensions about even wanting to to potentially have more children, even
Yeah.
though I want more children. I have serious apprehensions of wanting to do it where to the point in time where I'm like, I don't think this is worth it. Like, but to your point of what you just said, like, as a nurse, they'd be like, "What are you talking about? I can handle this. I can handle this all day
But
long."
they
And I'm
need
going,
to.
I can't. They need to.
They actually need to because without the ability to care for people, they feel like they're useless. They can't function because that's who they are. That's who they
Right.
built. That's what I'm saying is you can live your own life. That's
I
all you
I
can do.
I agree with you. This goes back to balance, being on purpose, a lot of stuff that we talk about all the time. You're right. Look, if you want to feel, feel. If you don't want to feel, don't feel. That's up to you.
Don't
That's who you
I
are.
can't force people,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
can't force you to have my perspective, right? Oh.
Perspective.
You
I don't
don't
want
want
it.
my perspective.
I can have a lot of empathy if I actually experience what you experience. Like I will have a ton of empathy for people that have
But you don't have the antenna to receive it.
no,
You're
no, no,
just
no, no.
missing that
I'm
part.
saying if I've literally experienced what you've experienced, I have a lot of empathy. If it's just an idea and a concept that you're telling me about, like you telling me about a war going on in your country and leaving your country and yada yada, like that's for
But
me.
that's not really empathy
No, it's not. That's what I'm trying to say.
because you just trigger your own emotional experience.
This is that I've struggled with this concept of empathy for so long because I'm like, I don't understand it. Like, I can't only empathize with somebody if I truly understand what they've gone through. That's the only way that I know how to empathize with somebody, but I wouldn't call that empathy. I would call
That's
that
not empathy. It's like
it's
when you call
not.
say, hey, can you copy this for me? Therefore, it's a copy, right? No, it's not how copy works. Empathy
I
is the ability to take something and
agree.
transferring it over and experiencing it. That's empathy. That's the definition of empathy. But because you
I
can't say,
know.
well, I haven't experienced it before, I'm just going to regurgitate the experience back and say, oh, okay, that was what. That's not empathy. You didn't understand anything. You didn't transfer anything.
I agree. So I said I don't understand the concept of empathy. Like I literally
You don't
cannot
understand.
understand.
I don't understand empathy because we don't have it.
I agree. It goes back to this whole entire conversation of the origin stories of I don't care. I mean, I guess I really don't care, I mean, I care about somebody that understands. Like, I think it's important for me to understand there is an origin story, and I'm totally happy with learning about the origin stories. But it will never emotionally
It should
change
not
how
have
I
changed
feel.
you. That's what I'm saying is it should not change you for who you are. You gotta be who you are, not who you want to be, right? Then you say, well, let me be more mindful of the origin story and become something else. If it's
I
not
agree.
you, and if it makes you better, then great. Then think about it because that aligns with your core values. If knowing the origin story and understanding the origin story and respecting the origin story aligns with your core value and makes you a better person, a better you, but it's still a you, then
Right.
yes, that aligns with you, then go ahead and do that. But you
Agreed.
can't force people to get, well, you need to understand the origin story. You need to take it to this account, you take another account, you need to fill this. You're telling me how I should play, the piano, because this is how you learn it, right? Well,
Yep.
I learn differently. We talk about this throughout the journey, is everybody is uniquely themselves, and they have to adhere to the obedience of the makeup of their gene. That is the only way to enjoy life. That is my hypothesis throughout this journey that I've learned, is you cannot escape your genes
You can't.
expectations of what you got to do, right? This is what you call fate. If
Yep.
you're short, you cannot become, Shaq O'Neal. You just can't, right?
Yep.
You
No, I
just
mean,
can't.
you can't. Your talents. You don't choose your talents. Like
You don't.
you just are talented. Like so. This is what I was writing about, and this is we gotta cut it off here because we could probably talk about this further. We could start a whole other YOML right now, and I don't want to do that. But like
You gotta be careful though.
I know, right? If you asked me to shut up for an entire day, could I do it? I don't think
It would be difficult.
and even if I
And it'd
could,
be torture.
I would be miserable. Yeah, exactly. This is something I've fought with my entire life. There's been times where I'm like, if only I could just shut the fuck up.
But knowing what you know now, you should ask this question: why the fuck do I do that?
Not just ask the question of why the fuck do I do that? It should be, where can I talk the most at that'll be beneficial and productive?
Yes.
Why do you think I write every day? Like Amelia and I can have a conversation all day long, and I can just ramble, and she'll listen. We get thoughts out, and we're in the zone. This is why writing to me is so impactful, because I can just fucking ramble
You and I
about,
are in the zone for the last hour and 45 minutes.
right. I mean, and allowing me to just talk about things that I want to talk about too, and then we share a conversation around it, is exactly what I would want to do too. This is a productive channeling of my talking, right? In our conversations that we have together. So there are avenues to do it better, right? That's really on you, is to figure out where to apply your talents in this world. Not, do I want this talent or not? Do I want this talent? You don't really get to choose that. It's, you have this talent, whatever it may be, and it is your job to figure out where to apply it. Like, you can either run downhill or you can run uphill, usually, with it, right?
Ask you, hey, Chris, how much you get paid for talking to this shithead?
Can you imagine me as a profession of being a librarian? Like, if you told me, like, hey, you just got to sit in the library all day long and not talk to anybody, like, and I would be
Oh
like,
my goodness, that's
I can't do
even
that.
for me, it's not doable.
No, it'd be horrible. Like, give me another profession of somebody that doesn't speak.
That doesn't speak.
Yeah, like a profession where just by nature of the profession, you don't get a chance to talk to anybody. Like, oh, I got one. Somebody that's like a free solo mountain climber, I'd be out there going like, fuck we doing up here? Like, and they're like, who are you talking to? I'm like, myself, I guess. I don't know. Sucks.
The Wilson guy from the movie.
Wilson, a truck driver. That'd be the worst job. Unless I could talk to somebody like on the radio, but then they'd be like, shut the fuck up, Chris. Like, I'm trying to drive. Like, I'm trying to focus on driving.
Right.
All right, anyway.
Yes, truck driver is not for me either.
Okay, all right. So let's put a pin on this one for 363. Any final thoughts?
I don't. We'll get more to go, but still.
Last two. All right, question we can leave for everybody is, how can you strive to understand the full story in your daily interactions? So just having the perspective of knowing that there is more to it, at least inquiring about that, and using your talents to understand if it aligns. Fair enough.
No one give a shit. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
No,
It's not to be mean, right? To say, hey, I have a self-esteem. It's, whatever. If you and I come across and it benefits me, then yeah, I'll participate.
Right.
And you will participate too if it aligns with you. You can be really nice and participate, but it will stop. It will stop at some point. But if it aligns with you and it benefits you and me together, right? You and I will climb that well forever. You think about you and I pushing against our backs, right? Against the well to continue up, benefits me, benefit you. You and I could continue to climb that well.
All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow as we round out the final 0.15 miles of this journey. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.